you see his primary damage dealing is in his 2 other configurations.
And there might have been some swaps, so I'm not 100% sure if this is possible, or if this is true. But you had mentioned like that slow rotation, a defensive rotation there for Renegades, as Luminosity was able to take second. Definitely one of the weaknesses that has always been a weakness for Bastion, but now maybe isolated at comp. One thing that may be added to that is Jur was playing Mercy. And so they didn't have a Lucio. Would a Lucio potentially offset that, or is that still probably the best way to do?
Well, it's hard to say. I mean, the problem with Lucio is that you're dealing or taking more damage overall when you're running these Bastion compositions, so you are sort of stuck in the situation where the more healing you can put forward, the better. They also had the weird setup there as well, where they were running the Mercy, but also running the Mercy more so just to boost Mangachu and make his damage that much more intimidating as a Bastion. And it was working out very well for just cutting through Reinhardt shields pretty much instantaneously.
In that particular setup, the big problem is who you're going to take out to fit a Lucio in. You can't take out Ana, and you can't take out Mercy when you're running a Bastion. I think it might be applicable to teams rotating around Bastion setups to run an offensive Lucio perhaps and just speed boost around where they can actually do their damage. Maybe we'll see that incoming, but right now you can't run 3 supports and can't take Ana away, of course. You can't take Mercy away in a Bastion comp.
Well, I was going to say, and that's the thing, talking about Ana, both Sherlocky and Hidan with some amazing darts. And I actually do think as well that if you can break down that shield first, the barrier from Reinhardt, well, that's another thing that can really enable you to nullify that Bastion threat. But both of them had great games, I think, on Ana, and that's another reason why we're not seeing it go away anytime soon, as you had mentioned there, ZP. The only other thing I had before we go into our next map is tank usage did seem a little bit better today. We had a few questions. The few times that we saw it used yesterday didn't seem very impactful. There were definitely some lackluster ones today. But how do you think they've unlocked that a little bit and why it was a little bit more useful?
Well, we're dealing with 2 different teams to begin with. A, and B is that the tank mode was not getting used in the very, very beginning of the fight when the Reinhardt still has a full shield. It's probably a little bit more effective, you think about it, to crack the enemy Reinhardt shield first, then go to the tank mode, because turret mode, very good at dealing with the Reinhardt shield. Tank mode, even though every shell is very damaging, actually doesn't deal with the Reinhardt shield particularly well.
Yeah, we saw an example of that. They lost all of their potential just shooting into a Reinhardt shield, so Luminosity with a nice retreat there, able to keep it back and completely nullifying an ult.
Yeah, and that was also Nano that had come out during that. The only other thing that I noticed that I didn't notice as much yesterday is just the simple left-click jump, boosting yourself up with your own cannon. And I would say that definitely came to bear a few times today, and I didn't really actually see it yesterday. I'm going to have to go back to the game footage. But the next map is Temple of Anubis. This one, of course, selected by the Luminosity Gaming, as they did lose that last map. Is this something that they've looked strong on?
Well, Renegades has somewhat struggled in assault maps overall, more so on Hanamura, but that's when they were running 4 DPS. I think it's going to be difficult if Renegades continues to run this, to use their past history on maps really as any indicator, because the meta has changed, and if they're going to run Bastion, their previous results, they're not going to run 4 DPS, so it does change things and how impactful their previous map results have been.
Well, right now, if you're Renegades, you take a look at the effective non-responsive Luminosity to their Bastion play, and you're not really getting a whole lot of reason not to continually run Bastion until they prove they can beat it. If you're LG, you should probably quickly go to VODs from yesterday and go, oh, this is how you flanked Bastion from multiple angles. This is how you put more pressure on it, because it felt like LG tried to deal with the Bastion a little bit more traditionally, and they weren't really getting a whole lot of success. You need to deep dive on it and really pressure it from multiple angles.
And that was something we did see, is that the sight lines and the angles being exploited on attack, and it forced Bastion into some sticky situations where he wasn't really able to have very much impact. And that's why we actually did see Bastion swapped off of. We didn't see it on second defense on Anubis yesterday, and so we'll have to see. These teams definitely have adapted to it maybe a little bit differently in the 24 extra hours I guess they had to prep, but I can't wait to see these teams clash on this map, I guess, in that case.
What I would take a look at is they'll definitely run it on first on defense, will Renegades. They'll definitely run Bastion on first, in my opinion. They'll have the entire setup over top. Some teams have switched off of Bastion on last, but Renegades is also a team that would run Mangachu on Torb on last, and what he was so great at on last on this map as Torb is setting up turret to one side, and they think it's there. Then he's on the other side and think it's there, and you could see a lot of that with Bastion now, who's really just an overgrown Torb turret.
Right. This is where Mangachu at one point liked building turrets. He liked building turrets so much he became a turret. And that's
this
what
is the
we're seeing right now for
story of the
Renegades.
OCS. He liked it so much he became a turret. Well, in that case, let's take a look at Temple of Anubis. Coming into this map, we have the 2-1 Renegades versus Luminosity, who's 1-2. And Luminosity, they really want to tie things up as they're down 1 map right now, coming in to Temple of Anubis.
Well, Hex, take a look at Renegades as they are setting up here. It looks like we're in for more Bastion. They have, and going into our pregame analysis, it makes perfect sense. If LG had trouble dealing with it, why change now?
Renegades was the team that I thought would run it more than anyone else, just having the practice on pre-patch Bastion, knowing the good spots for it. Mangachu has run Bastion for a very long time. He's one of the only players in the professional scene who comes to mind when you think of Bastion players, he and Shore4, of course. So, yeah, no surprise that they'll be running out here. It definitely seems that Renegades wants to run it, is more comfortable running it. They're not running it just because it is new meta now. Of course, that helps a lot. And that Luminosity is the other side of things, that they're only trying it because it's new, but if they had their druthers, they would not run it.
I still think that just adds even more instability to the Luminosity, where they're trying to figure out who's playing what, and now you have the scenario where, wait, do we want to run a Bastion, or what do we run against a Bastion? For a team that has really been trying to think how they want to run things, I just don't think adding an extra factor here has been particularly helpful to them.
Well, there is a notion that perhaps Pharah can be good against Bastion, but it really depends what mode he's in. I think it takes 4 rockets, 4 unhealed rockets against his Sentry mode Bastion right now to take him down. Going to be very difficult to do at a high level of play when Bastion's going to be getting the level of support he is. An interesting perch to set up on. They're going to take the very high ground. Usually you take the lower perch here, but you can be vulnerable to concussion blast there. So I actually like this new positioning.
We'll see how it works out here. Renegades, of course, going to make... Oh, Saipe just goes down immediately. Super Pluke immediately striking gold. And by the way, Pluke usually plays on Reinhardt, so we're seeing this weird setup here of Reinhardts that are shifting to Tracers, now Widowmakers. Who knew?
Well, what's Reinhardt going to do against a Bastion except watch his shield go to shreds? Very difficult to stay alive as a Reinhardt, but they do force them off of this position. Now Pluke is up top looking into the back lines. They're not covered by the shield, but a nice dart will put him to sleep. Spree, meanwhile, takes down both supports.
This is a multi-threat going on here in Spree with 2 early kills early on while they were looking at Widowmaker. Looking much better here from LG. Renegades maybe can bring this back, but it's going to take some big plays from Bastion. And as it's going in, you see Pluke pick off Jesus and be a big part of why Saipe just went down there. It is really just Mangachu and the Juvenile versus the world right now, and gotta think that they're going to get taken out in just a moment.
Some great healing early on to keep Spree alive. He was down to 9, and he is a linchpin of this offense, making sure that they cannot focus just on the ground fight, have to look at the air. A very late death onto Sherlock. Not that big of a deal, just a tiny bit of feed, but no notion of taking it back. They will grab first point.
What really strikes out to me about these Bastion compositions is that if you lose someone quickly for any reason, it actually seems very hard to hold your ground. Saipe got taken down by that early shot from Pluke, and then suddenly Renegades had to completely change their game plan of where they positioned as a result. So perhaps Widowmaker, not the worst. Not even for killing the Bastion, but just finding pickoffs on other members of this Bastion squad.
I agree. Every piece has to be in place to make this Bastion composition as effective as it is. And you start taking out one or take something out of the side, then it will collapse in upon itself. So that's what they're trying to do, looking for a more pick-oriented offense. They're going to stay on this combination, and I think it's a good idea. You need a resurrection towards the end here to maybe take a second fight.
Well, LG looking for what could be a game-winning attack right now. This is one of the best opportunities they will have. Mangachu, the only one really with an ult up right now. Tank mode at the ready. They're about to have resurrection though, so the LG's window quickly fading from them. They've been very slow to move in here, and it's not really clear why.
Well, Jir was one of the first to die last time. They did prioritize picking him off, but if they get him once, they're going to have to prioritize picking him off again as he re-enters this. It's very difficult to take these control lasts, despite some of the changes we've seen. Should be easier for attackers, but not great when you lose 2 right away. This fight essentially over. Spree will go down without using an ultimate, which is good for him.
For LG, at least they had the self-discipline to go, all right, we're probably lost this fight. Icefeld has died early on. Let's just back things up. Spluke gonna get off the Widow, going to 76, but I gotta say, I don't like that exchange from LG. There's a point where LG could have rolled in with a lot of momentum, a big ultimate advantage, and they just sat there poking, and by the time they went in, it was just very weak.
Well, this is what we expected from Renegades, running the Bastion on last. It's going to be Mangachu rotating left and right whenever he sees a chance, going to stay in recon mode, keep himself as mobile as possible, let the team not scout where he is, get as much damage. He's in a good spot here. They are going to have the resurrection. Pluke takes down Jesus very early.
That's a good pickoff early on. The problem is that they do have Resurrection and Nano Tank here on the way. And oh, Mangachu just dunks on Fluke early on. We're going to see the res come out pretty early here for Renegades. They want to keep up everyone. The res comes in from LG. So everyone back to full strength. LG trying to bring it back. Ube slicing into the corner. He's going to get hammered down instead. Renegades doing enough damage to LG to hold this out.
Not enough. Hidon will take down Saipe with that surprisingly powerful pistol there, and that is going to be the end of the fight. They did force out every single ultimate on the side of the defense, though, if they are keeping track. So a small window here where they will have at least a barrage. You can go into the sound barrier, might help you out as well, but primary targets have to be Mangachu very early.
I'm not confident in LG's ability to convert on these windows right now, given how long they took the last time, because, yeah, if they go in right now, it's a great opportunity, but they seem to just wait for the perfect time to go in, and while they're doing that, Mangachu's getting closer to tank mode. But here we go. Now they go in. Barrage sound barrier on the way. Spree getting very little from that because of the sleep, and as a result, they're trading out 1-for-1 right now, but the defense in a very good position. Mangachu's still a big threat here in the back. They haven't dealt with him. We'll see how it works out. They do lose Jesus, though. Ube getting work done. 2 DPS going down to him, but here comes the tank from Mangachu. Gonna be looking for cleanup, and I gotta tell you, Tank Shell, very scary in these closed-in situations. Picks off Hedan immediately.
It's the one-shot, absolutely devastating, this tank mode. They need to get the notion out of their head, Luminosity does, that you can poke down this Bastion. He's going to have a Mercy on him. His self-heal is enough. They're throwing in rockets at him, and it's not doing much, and I think they need to deep dive as they can, but when they did deep dive, Spree got absolutely shut down out of the sky with a sleep dart, so having a lot of troubles dealing with all aspects of this defense, not just the Bastion.
Well, for Spree was telegraphed. He was the first one in by a mile, and of course they're going to focus on that. Saipang, though, goes down to Ube. Ube into the backline. Dragon Blade out. Picks up 2. Picks up 3. Ube slicing and dicing in. Going now for Mangachu. Has to deflect for just a bit. Mangachu's only taking out 1 as he gets just bullied out by those rockets coming in from Spree.
Well, they do the resurrection on their offense. No resurrection available for the defense just yet, but they have to prioritize that Mercy. 84%, but that is possibly due to the new assault rules. They will finally finish it out, in no small part thanks to Ube's Dragon Blade.
I think even under older assault rules, that might have been a full cap. It was just very decisive where Ube got 1 pick and then just snowballed it through, ended up carving through the majority of the Renegades team. So the interesting thing there is that it wasn't a case where we got to take out the Bastion first. They just took out everyone and then got rid of the Bastion.
Well, that's very likely the best strategy at this point because Bastion is untakeoutable. Yes, I'm making up that word. I'm for it. But everyone else around him is still at the same power level for the most part, and his power level diminishes greatly when you start taking around, taking out his shields, taking out his healing, etc.
Well, here we are, the interior of whatever it is that the offense sets up on. Reading some documents, having some drinks. I mean, why not? There's not a whole lot else out here on the Temple of Anubis. Seems very much like you keep to yourself.
Well, you may be reading documents. I'm just looking at pictures. I've proven time and again that I am barely literate at best. But I saw it was Anna there. I like picture books and pop-ups mostly.
Why do they have their Christmas lights still up? That's my question. This is some real laziness going on there.
Tragically, they all died on Christmas Day, and those lights will be up forever.
Wow, now you're just making it dark. Now I feel bad.
Usually that's you making it dark, but I guess I'm in that kind of mood. They will set up on their defense with Bastion Light here. That is going to be Mineral running the Torb instead. And they're going to run a Bastion as well. So a lot of robots competing for bullet targets here as we go forward. Mineral will play the Torb. Icefelt is going to be on that defensive Bastion. So far, it looks like Renegades not going to run their own Bastion, but wouldn't surprise me a last-second switch from Mangachu. The rest of the composition doesn't really support it, though. Nope, they're going to go pure dive.
Well, they're going pure dive, and they're running into both Bastion and Torb here. This is either going to be very good or very bad, depending upon when the first kill is. If they can kill the turret early on, restore themselves, fully and go in, it's going to be pretty good. If they ignore the turret, could be very bad, and effectively 2 turrets, 1 Bastion, 1 Torb, and right now they're just going to try and work in from the other side as Icefelt eats a bio nade and actually has to back out pretty quickly.
A very nice nade. The turret is down as well as Jesus rotated over to that side, taking a very calculated approach to this, not necessarily diving, but just getting a lot of damage done, making sure that turret is down, making sure they know where the enemy is before they dive. Right now, though, Icefelt getting very low again. Self-heal is going to get him back up to at least 2/3 health as he's going to push himself back, but the offense has done a great job of making the defense relocate.
Saipe getting onto turret once more, diving into backline. Icefeld under all sorts of pressure here between Mangachu and Saipe. He's stuck in the corner, still alive though, as he gets nano boosted. He's rolling in more bullets, and LG, off of this Bastion pressure, might be pulling this back, though Mangachu still a threat in disguise.
Mangachu doing a lot of damage, peeking, but not peeking too far. He's going to stay up here. They don't necessarily have the people to get up here and deal with him, so as long as he can stay out of sightlines and get healed, he's going to be up here in perpetuity.
The one downside, of course, is that Bastion is getting healed during this entire time, so they're both shooting each other and not getting a whole lot from it, aside from ult charge. Now, Barrage, of course, can take a Bastion at place pretty quickly if the Bastion isn't immediately on the fair. So you got to think Mangachu is going to look for that concussive blast in for a Barrage to open this up, and it's going to be coming very soon.
Well, Saipe's got the Dragon Blade, and we've seen how effective that can be. He's going to just take down the turret really early on as this fight starts.
Oh, here comes Mangachu in over the top. Barrage immediately unleashed. Takes down Fluke immediately. Oop, Saipe in the back. Dragon Blade cutting to shreds, picking up 2. And LG will be falling here. A pretty well-coordinated attack from Renegades between both the Barrage and the Dragon Blade to really break that wide open.
The only unfortunate thing is that they had to use ultimates there. If in an ideal world, they would be able to save a few of them for this next push. Regardless, they're going to go in. They're going to go in against a Molten Core Torb. He's trying to set up, but that is going to be denied immediately by Saipe. Although the bubble keeping him alive, Saipe actually in trouble, goes down early.
Saipe not able to deal with Torb once that Zarya shield came in on him. And now for the offensive Renegades, this is already a moment where, okay, we should probably hold back, wait for Saipe to get back to this, because we're definitely not going to take it 5v6 with no ults in the bank.
Well, that means they are definitely going to have a level 2 turret up with the capability of being transformed into a level 3 with Molten Core. They also have Bastion with tank mode up and a Graviton, so looking good for the defense as far as resources go.
Icefeld holding up here. Does have tank mode at the ready. Gets boosted immediately, although gets immediately taken out. Mangachu able to deal enough damage from the side. Nano booster, no, but still, LG's already taken out 3 members of this offense. Mangachu gonna have to back out and look for a different opportunity.
He does escape with his life thanks to some healing from his Ana. He will have Barrage going. Jesus also with Pulse Bomb, so you'd have to imagine that the priority here is going to be Jesus taking out the Torb and the turret to the left before Molten Core can up. Mangachu perhaps barraging Icefeld before he's able to react.
The problem is here, though, is that even if Jesus lands a Pulse Bomb onto Icefeld immediately, if Spree's holding on to his shield as he should, he's going to be able to negate that with Zarya immediately. So they have to wait for a better opportunity. They can't just raw Pulse Bombing out. They do find Ube early on here, split off, but Mineral says it's Molten Core time, takes down 2. Icefeld even goes full tank to finish out Jared. Probably wasn't necessary, but it will do the job in throwing Renegades back.
Well, Icefeld did have to burn his ultimate, as did Mineral, so as good of a result as they could have expected without getting the full team wipe. And Jesus still holding on to that Pulse Bomb, so again, I think that he's going to be targeting Torb instead. Mangachu should be the one on Icefeld. Pulse Bombs simply aren't enough to take out Bastions anymore, as they will hold here on the defense. Spree working his way as well to an ultimate.
Well, we do have 4 minutes left here in the map, but this is one of Renegade's best windows to move in. They're going to have a full 6 ultimates up for this next fight. And if they do this quick here, Spree won't even have a Graviton immediately.
No, he won't, unless he gets a lot of damage going in the fight. Renegades with a full 6. This is a fight in theory that they should win. A Sound Barrier does come in.
And here comes Renegade. Saipe into backline. Dragon Blade already out. He's grabbed Mineral early on, but Icefeld on the counterplay has taken down 2, now 3. Icefeld as Bastion melting down this Renegades offense. They ran into Icefeld and they paid the price. They were not able to get rid of him.
5 ultimates used, no fights won, not a trade you want to make at all. Mangachu held on to his, but that's not going to be enough for this next push, as during that, the tank ultimates came online for Luminosity Gaming. As you mentioned, just about 3 minutes left going into this. Looking very difficult for Renegades. They've not really had great signs of life. That's a fight that at least they should have traded out partially. Really not the most ideal push with 6 ults.
No, and now for Renegades, unless they get a very good early pickoff here, they're probably going to be struggling for the next 2 minutes. You really do need power on your side to take this. And you look at here for the defense, they have Graviton and tank mode ready for this next fight. Hard to imagine Renegades doing much here aside for a junk push to just drain this a bit.
Well, Mangachu's not messing around. He's back onto Bastion instead. Takes out a turret very early on. So far, that is the only action we've got going on in the kill feed. A big grab will come up, but Icefeld chews down Juvenile. Icefeld putting himself very small in that corner. Nothing left for Luminosity.
Icefeld wasn't under pressure at all there from how Renegades came in there from the left, and Renegades, on top of that off, they weren't really able to isolate anyone that was over in that position, so they got no pickoffs. They were not able to pressure Icefeld at all, and they really just died in Spree's Graviton.
Well, it's very early in this meta, ZP, and we're trying to learn it along with the folks at home, but what do you think Renegades needs to change? Is it just going to be on Mangachu getting tank mode and going nuts, maybe a resurrection? What do you think?
I don't know that Bastion v Bastion is the way to go here. I mean, maybe it'll work out. They get Nano Boost tank. It can be very effective at clearing things out if the Reinhardt is out of it, but I'm not entirely convinced Renegades is applying the proper amount of pressure here to break into this. Now, they are pretty good about killing Torbjorn turrets, that's one thing, but in the time that they do, they just get counter-engaged on by LG. Ube and Icefeld just coming over a little bit, picking up to immediately, and the fight's already over.
Fight is over. No one sent Saipe the memo. He gets it very late, goes down late in there. And another somewhat staggered death onto Sherlocky means that the next push will likely occur with a minute left and will very likely be their last push. It is possible, though. They're working their way to some big ults. A nano tank into a res could be huge. Juvenile's got Earth Shatter. Last good push incoming for Renegades.
Well, as mentioned for Renegades, it was going to take them about 2 minutes to charge it up, and it did. So this is going to be their final crack at it. They do have the Resurrection here at the very least, where maybe they eat a whole bunch of ultimates and get a very good res off. It's going to be very difficult, though. They need to deal Torb in the back and deal with Icefeld, the double threat. And oh my goodness, Mangachu wasn't paying attention to Icefeld, dies immediately here, and you don't want to res this right off. You're just going to wait, and then they're going to go in with about maybe 30 seconds left.
Absolutely. Have to wait. It will be another 6 ultimates very likely coming up as Jesus is nearing his as well. We saw them use a 6 ult push before to very little effect. It doesn't matter their positioning a lot, and the order of ultimates is going to be crucial. Saipe might be the one to start it off. I think you want to start off here with a control ult. One of the tanks should be throwing down first.
Renegades again choosing the left side as their engage point here. We'll see if it pays off. Saipe gonna need to land a good Graviton to set things up here. There is a lot of punching power now in Renegade's side. They just have to make the most of it. They open up here with the Graviton. Will pull in the bulk of the LG team. They don't fall through me, but there it is. The Earth Shatter coming in. They'll talk down 2, but Icefeld is still in this. Takes down 2 right away. The Resurrection comes out, so both teams throwing their all into this. We'll see if the res is enough for LG as Mangachu still in here, goes for tank mode, moving into the back, tank versus tank. Icefeld and Mangachu firing shell after shell into each other. And LG getting the better of this with Sherlocky down, Juvenile down. Mangachu's gonna find himself pushed back in a hurry.
Getting the much better of this. Mangachu trying to run some cute mechanical aspects there, jumping away from the Reinhardt, but that will be Luminosity full holding on second point there, taking the map.
And again, I think right now what we're seeing here is that teams are not super comfortable with how to attack these Bastion's defenses, depending on the points. I mean, clearly, even in yesterday's series where we saw Team Liquid versus Complexity, both teams had their ways of dealing with Bastion. It felt like both Renegades and LG were not as comfortable, and maybe the Bastion was just being played better here. It's hard to say. We need more data one way or another.
Perhaps Mangachu will get play of the game. This is very early on as he finds him in a corner. A nice barrage there will clean up most of them, but Renegades has struggled on several assault maps, finishing out second point. It seems like that something about their strategy just doesn't lend itself to it.
Boy, looking at this, I'm just like keep going over the idea of multiple threats. And what we've seen is kind of the classic 3 of this event in Tracer, Genji, and Pharah. And we actually even saw that versus Bastion in this one. But now I'm almost seeing like if that's the mobile multiple threats, what we just saw at Luminosity was the non-mobile multiple threats. You've got a turret, and then the 2-part threat of just having the turret and yourself there. And then you have another turret that is a little bit mobile, but how did that play out on first, having the turret, and how did that play out on second from Torb?
Well, on first, they just got overwhelmed, where they suffered an early pickoff to begin with, and you just saw them getting swarmed all around. It was Saipe who died early, and it kind of went bad. And I'm just thinking about it through a second there, is that the problem is when you take a look at that last second point attack, the turret went down first very early, but they expended so much in the terms of positioning and firepower that you just saw a counter engage come in and punish them for killing the turret on most of those attacks. So the turret as a decoy was definitely working out.
As a decoy and as an early warning system as well, you know exactly if they're coming in left or right by that turret just firing in that direction. That's why they generally had them on opposite sides. And the geography is such on last point there that you're never going to get snuck up upon. So if they're going to rotate in right, you just set up over left and you have its giant setup with Bastion. We saw that time and time again. Regardless of what side they came in, they'd rotate to the other side. Now they have a nice hallway over here, spawn over there. Very difficult to push in, especially when you can't do it quickly. I don't know, perhaps Lucio could be some of the answers here. I don't think so, but moving in with speed and catching them off guard before they can set up might be a tactic. It's difficult to say.
Well, we did see teams use Lucio quite a bit yesterday in dealing with it and just having very strong aggressive dives, so why not? I think that really the Bastion wasn't getting as challenged as it otherwise could be. Sometimes you saw them come out of the Tracer, and then you never saw Pulse Bomb really go in on it, even though, yes, it could be countered by the Zarya. I don't know. It felt a little bit messy from all teams involved here, and why not? They haven't exactly been playing with Bastion over the last few months. They are experimenting with it here, and clearly between these two teams and LG and Renegades, they're investing a lot more into their Bastion play than we saw just yesterday between Complexity and Team Liquid.
Yeah, and I like what both of them have brought so far. You know, just learning a little bit more about Bastion. I definitely just like the idea of having multiple solid threats, at least on second, where you know where they're coming anyway, and really you just need to find a good spot to defend. And it does seem like that rolling ball of like everyone standing behind your Reinhardt and will move in slowly on the enemy Bastion, not working out. Like you got to get in there and get it a little messy. I feel like Pulse Bomb was something we saw utilized a little bit better yesterday to nullify that threat, because you don't want to have to spend multiple resources diving in there, and maybe that Pulse Bomb is something where you're not really using as much. The rest of you can be worrying about other things.
Well, I mean, you did see from Team Liquid where they were doing things like moving in with Mezar and a Winston, where even though in theory Winston should just get chewed up by a Bastion, was enough of a distraction for, say, AZK to come in from the side, drop a Pulse Bomb. Very swift engages. I think what we saw here with both teams dealing with the Bastions, they were very slow engages. They gave time for the Bastion to get out. And then a lot of the times, even if they got 2 or 3 kills, like we saw in the last fight, Icefell was able to come back, chew up 3 people, and that was that.
Yeah, that said, Luminosity might actually be the team that can deal with Bastions the best as we move forward, as they get more used to it, because we've seen their engages be very swift, as this is our moment, we got to go in. Their dive comp, when executed properly, is one of the fastest in the game.
Yeah, the other thing that we notice here is heal greater than rockets. There was one time when Mangachu just went in and was like, trying to poke down, as you had said, just a couple of rockets here and there. I'm going to disrupt, and it's like, well, you're not going to get that kill, and Bastion just running around self-healing. You have to find a different answer than that.
You can't poke Bastion. It just tickles him.
Yeah. You know, I'd like to see that through the robot. Yeah, through the robot voice.
Is that the robot or the Pillsbury Doughboy, or a Pillsbury Doughboy loaded into a robot?
Saying I'm doughy?
This gets very grim very quickly.
I mean, I'm not going to say I'm not doughy, but the Pillsbury Doughboy, that cuts deep. You know,
not you. The sound.
Okay, yeah, that's fine. That's fine. Yeah, I can deal with that.
I'm staying out of it.
This is why we're on opposite ends of the desk.
I am the arbiter
volatility
in the middle.
Here.
Yeah.
No, yeah. Anyway, well, looks like the next map is going to be Oasis, selected this time not by Luminosity Gaming, as they actually were able to find a point, and I'm really excited for this series, for their shot at maybe going 2-2 so far. But Oasis being selected by the Detroit Renegades here. Why do you think they picked this one?
This is obviously them playing to their strengths. It is one of their best control maps by far, because Luminosity struggles on control in general. They struggle especially on Nepal, so if they were choosing against their team, it would be taking them to Nepal, but this is absolutely Renegade's map. We saw it earlier, probably pre-Bastion meta. Mangachu is always going to be on Pharah all the time. Oasis, that super vertical map.
I do wonder why they wouldn't go Nepal here, just because Mangachu would probably have a pretty good Bastion in both Sanctum and Village, and meanwhile going to Oasis, it lends itself more to the Pharah play, and yet we haven't been seeing that much Pharah aside from First Point Attack and Nubis, where otherwise Mangachu's been very content there on the Bastion. So last patch, it makes sense. This patch, with how they've been playing, I do wonder if Oasis was the best choice, but we'll have to see.
Guess we'll have to find out. I'm curious to see if maybe they're like, well, let's just play Pharah. We didn't like Bastion as much as we thought we would. But either way you slice it, here we are on Oasis. The series is tied 1-1 in Renegades versus Luminosity.
So that is Oasis. We are taking a look here. Pretty interesting area. You have a library. You have cars. What more do you really need?
Well, what I really need is jump pad Bastion. That's all I want to see here. I don't care who wins. I don't care who gets play of the game. I want jump pad Bastion. If that's play of the game, all the better as we move forward. But that's something we saw when we were speccing some of the PTR pugs. Jump pad Bastion was a thing, and it's funny.
Well, maybe the Omnic crisis is over here, Hex, because at least going into this first stage, it looks like both teams will be running a Pharah early on. Spree, of course, going to be the Pharah for LG, and Renegades going to be, or Mangachu going to be the Pharah for Renegades. So, and both teams running Pharah Mercy, so they're all in on supporting their respective Pharahs.
Interesting is going to be how the other DPS come into these equations, because Icefelt and Ube, in theory, should be able to help out a little more than Saipe and Jesus, mostly just based on Soldier 76 running that hit scan. So we'll see what the priority targets end up being, if it's just Pharah v Pharah or the rest of the team goes in. But that is a very early kill as Sherlocky falls to Ube.
And now with that Mercy down immediately, that's going to hurt Renegade's combo as Mangachu takes one immediately from Spree. Spree just running in with that mid-air rocket, so they win the ground war and the air war early on, coming from the side of LG. They should be able to take this point relatively quickly.
Well, do they win the ground war, though? Because meanwhile, there was a couple kills on the ground from Jur and their Tracer as well, as Jesus is not going to give this up. They still have a lot of very mobile heroes on the point, the hardest heroes to hit with the rockets, and they're having a hard time connecting.
And this is where they've given enough time for Renegades to come back in. LG not able to finish their plate in time, something that's been a problem for LG.
Absolutely.
And Spree just gets flanked from behind. So despite the early pickoffs, they're not able to finish out the rest as Renegade stalls just enough to get back onto the point. So bit of an unfortunate lost opportunity for LG. And let me just say this for LG, where I have to point this out because it's just so insanely inconsistent. We saw it before yesterday when, or their last match, where you saw Icefelt on Tracer and control Ube on 76. Now we're on control, and it's Ube on Tracer and Icefelt on 76. Please figure this out.
Don't think too much about it. It will simply break your brain. But you're right about the extended fights for Luminosity. When they're attacking, it works against them. When they're defending, it does not. So it's been very difficult for them to finish fights early and decisively. Spree takes down Sherlocky again. Super is going to grab in Saipe. That's 3 quick kills. They should be able to flip this back over.
Well, even for LG, now they've killed 4-0 here. You have 2 people left playing, but that should not be enough to hold off LG. They should finally get on the board here. 40% to 1 as LG starts moving forward, but at least for LG here, actually do have enough in the back to actually win this next fight. 4, now 5 ultimates at the ready.
The big ultimate difference I see is Sherlocky still 30% away, while Hidan does have his resurrection, so that's going to be a second life for anyone who goes down early. Dragonblade gets shut down completely by Ube.
Saipe just went in there a little bit too early as well. Now Mangachu coming in over the top a moment later does pick down 2, so for not having a whole lot to begin with, this is not bad. But there's the resurrection coming out. Mangachu left out in the cold there at the barrage, not getting much after the res. Still though, Renegades bringing this back. Jesus on the ground, able to take down Super Fluke early on. Mangachu looking for this aerial fight. Pharah v Pharah just needs one more. Goes for the melee, doesn't get it. So close, and yet Spree takes down 2 before falling.
Saipe does switch over to the Diva. That is a notable switch because it helps out so much in the Pharah v Pharah battle. This is getting pretty aggressive here as they're going to, or actually, never mind, they're moving towards their own spawn. Getting pretty defensive there is what I meant to say clearly, as they go back and are going to try to regroup. Mangachu still in the skies, looking for that early poke, but they've got the advantage here, so it's going to be up to Luminosity Gaming to force the issue.
All right, so LG coming back onto the point here once more. Icefelt just fighting back and forth with Winston. Here comes the Sound Bear from LG. This is going to let them engage a little bit more heavily here. They win the Winston, and Renegade's now going to lose 3 people pretty quickly. Jesus still in this fight. Mangachu's still in this fight, but he is not able to sustain. Gets taken out of the air. And LG bring this right back. So reasonably back and forth here from both teams.
Very back and forth. They will finally flip it back over. Both resurrections will be up very likely during the next fight. Hidan getting over there, so it's going to be a player down, player back up situation, as nowadays we don't see the giant 4 or 5-man reses. Those tempo reses are very much more in vogue.
Well, Renegades with a great opportunity to bring this back. Jesus poking in here from the bottom, has Pulse Bomb, and Barrage comes in from Spree, trying to shut this down early on, takes down Diva and her mech pretty early in this fight, but there's the res coming in. Both teams resing, back up to 6v6. Any team's fight here, but you look at the bottom, Renegades is cleaning out the ground a little bit more effectively, but they lose Sherlocky, so it is all over the place, as Oasis oftentimes is.
Oasis, the most non-stop fighting of all the control maps. Spawns being pretty close, allows teams to come in. Some of the geography lends itself to stalling out much, much more. You see how difficult it can be to flip these points back. There is someone off the edge. No, never mind. I can rewind time, says Jesus. He's back on the point, but Icefeld's got his tactical visor. He's going to be looking to clean up. Grabs a couple there. This this should be Luminosity taking first control.
And Tech Fight is one of the few things that can quell the chaos in this sort of fight. Actually, kind of a problem for Renegades, they aren't running a 76 if you take that into consideration. Still, though, Renegades trying to make the most of it, coming back in. Saipe immediately going to fall. And this is where Renegades is just looking for a miracle. Mangachu, not able to withstand the poke, gets taken down immediately. So Icefeld picks up 2.
I mean, the odd thing is we talk about how often Luminosity Gaming does switch heroes up, but it seems that they haven't figured out of who they want to run here or there, because Icefeld, when he is on that 76, looks great. Ube had himself a fine game. It wasn't the dominant game, but neither did Jesus have either, but Icefeld really the one to clean up there. I think he's probably the stronger 76 and stronger Tracer overall, so when they feel one is more important on a stage or a map, that's the one he's on. I'm trying to figure it out.
Perhaps, although even then, now that we're seeing, before we almost have working theory, well, oh, maybe just Icefeld likes Tracer more in control, Ube likes 76 more control, and then you switch it up on other game modes. Well, we don't even have that to rely on here in figuring out LG's random switching.
Well, I think it is possibly what they like more on the map. That's not to say that Icefeld's overall the much better player than Ube, just on those two heroes. Ube's got a more rounded out pool, I would say, of the heroes that he can play. So Icefeld is going to stay on that 76, Ube on the Tracer, combos for both sides, but this time Saipe on the other side of things will be running their 76.
Well, Icefeld got so much done in 76, I think this is a good move from Saipe to swap to it. Definitely going to get a little bit more than the Genji, especially when you can flex and help your Pharah with the air war. Speaking of the air war, it is underway. Mangachu versus Spree here up in the air. And in fact, Spree just gets away from the air war, leaves Mangachu here to fight Tracer, and Mangachu might go down. Bounce pad coming up here. He's under hot pursuit. And while that's going on, Renegades and LG trading out relatively evenly back on the point.
Well, even as it is, no team with a great advantage so far, as is the nature of Oasis. Both the Winstons fighting each other, but Juvenile will take down Super with the help of Jesus on the ground. Jesus having the superior Tracer game so far. They're going to be chasing Icefeld. Icefeld perhaps a little bit off a little more than he could chew. Both him and Spree too far forward. Going to be difficult to take down Jesus as he still has Rewind up, but unable to hit Rewind before taken down by Ube. During all of that chaos, Renegades was able to wrestle control of the point, but now Luminosity comes in with 2 kills of their own.
Spree is able to catch Saipe off guard here, and LG should have a numerical advantage here in just a second as they get back onto this point where really the fights have been very spread out. We've been seeing fights take place in the air, in the ground, in the building, all at the same time, but we are seeing here as Mercy under a heck of a lot of pressure. Sherlocky not able to Guardian Angel out of there, so even though Mangachu and Juvenile are trying to bring this back, they're going to do it without a whole lot of healing. Still though, Mangachu at full HP, a lot of power left in him here because no one is actually looking at him, and for as long as Renegades is contesting, they're going to keep the progress moving forward.
It took Ube a very long time to kill that Mercy, not necessarily his fault. Those pistols do have pretty harsh fall off and spread damage. He is going to get back in here. Can he do enough damage to the Winston? No, as the healing comes in late there to keep him alive.
The whiff pulse bomb there definitely hurting Ube, although I think he still might have had the back out anyways. Still dies to Juvenile when he could have killed Juvenile with just a slightly better placed ultimate.
Renegade's still in control of this point and in control of the air battle as both he, Sherlocky, and Mangachu will have the ultimates. Hidan and Spree also with ultimates. It's kind of an interesting thing that happens. Sometimes you'll see Barrage against just another Pharah. They completely shut out Icefeld, who was trying to attack Visor off the jump pad.
Justice raining from the top floor. Mangachu picking up 2, but the resurrection gonna restore this. Icefeld though wondering, why have I been resurrected? I suffer this pain yet again. Mangachu, immediate punish off the res. Now looking to get on the opposite Fair Mercy combo. Looking for Mercy, just in from above, and Hidan's gonna fall. So Renegades going to hold on to this point here, Hex, and very likely going to take it. That resurrection coming out just to seal the deal.
Get everyone back to full force, and that's going to very likely be 100% to 0 as Saipe does activate his tactical visor. And in my opinion, that was the smartest switch they made in that entire map. Very early on, Saipe was pressuring down both his counterpart and Icefeld, and then he was able to rotate to help the combo. I think that was what they were lacking in that first stage, was Soldier 76, just to be able to supplement the damage. If you hit a rocket midair, that's great, but the healing is such that it's going to be negated unless you hit another direct rocket. Adding a Soldier in that combo helps.
Well, the other thing too is that when you're not dealing with Reinhardt's, Tech Visor is just very good at cleaning up a point and letting you take control or keep control. So I do like the fact that they are running 76 here now. Does look like we have some swap ups coming up here from LG. No longer looking for Pharah on this point. Of course, this is the university. It is much more enclosed, less Pharah friendly, and both sides actually get after Pharah as Mangachu coming in here in Bastion.
This was the point I expected to see Bastion, if any at all, on this map. As you mentioned, Pharah is not as good on this stage as she is on others where Bastion can be if they can get set up, maybe take the high ground. I actually want to see the Bastion spots for this map. Who would know better than Mangachu?
All right, Mangachu moving in turret mode here early on, and LG, we'll see how they deal with this here. They will try and flank it in from the side. They're going for a hook, but Spree just going to get melted down instead. Wasn't able to fight away the Mangachu as everyone was body blocking for him there, Hex. It was actually pretty hard to get a hook. But, as mentioned, the LG is still coming from the flank. They pick off 3, and maybe this Bastion won't be as effective after all.
Well, as they do try to take control of first point, the thing that to watch for now is to make sure that Bastion never gets set up. Mangachu at 70%, they're going to have to be very vigilant to make sure that he's never able to come in. But this fight's not necessarily over yet. Yes, point has been taken. Both Nano Boost will go on Reinhardt. What year is it?
Well, Super Fluke is the year where he's just falling to the other Reinhardt. Juvenile moves in. 2 kills here. Renegades reinforcing, and now Mangachu with a great opportunity. There's no Reinhardt to worry about. Chews through 2 people, and Renegades takes it right back.
They will flip it back over, and this is where it gets extremely dangerous, as Mangachu is going to have his pick of the perch on where he wants to set up. High ground, low ground, wherever. They have everything. And you know what? Why not just front ground on the stairs, get as much damage in as possible? This is about as aggressive a hold you'll see on this stage, holding the first set of stairs. So far, doing very well to contain.
All right, and you see Mangachu here getting protected by Saipe, gets the shield on him, makes so he doesn't go down early on. Saipe more than willing to do it. Mineral, who's trying to do a little bit of a sneaky back cap there. Still though, LG applying pressure. Ube in on this fight. It gets 2 early on. The Graviton comes in from the defense, but only gets Spree and doesn't do much. Spree, uncontained, finds Mangachu, and LG should be able to retake this.
Yeah, not enough there follow-up for that Graviton. Icefeld comes in for the late cleanup on the Soldier 76, so very back and forth so far. The one benefit of Renegades, perhaps, is that they have Resurrection. What do you have to do to be Mangachu, just so that you always have a Resurrection available? When you're running a Pharah, when you're running a Bastion, he always gets a second life. Doesn't seem quite fair, but that's going to be the setup that they're running. A tack visor. Wow, Mangachu not even noticing all the shots from Icefeld on that flank.
Well, it was a Bionade that dealt him in. He couldn't be healed during all of that. I think good grenades are one way of really going in on that. There's a Graviton right after the res. Luminosity willing to punish them for mercy, bring them back to life. And yet Mangachu still alive here, gets nano boosted, immediately burns down Fluke. And so the Resurrection, Graviton or no Graviton, actually very effective here for Renegades. Lets them keep the fight in their favor.
Well, the effective part of that was Juvenile's shield. He never dropped it. They didn't crack it. He kept everyone alive in that grab. All the damage was coming from a single angle. Not exactly what you want. So you get a giant grab, 4 people in it, no damage able to come through. And that's going to be Renegades taking the point back over. Will very likely be just about tied up by the time we see a next fight. Mangachu again with his pick of purchase.
One thing you're going to be seeing, I think, on every engagement from LG is that they're going to be opening with an Bionade. It has to hit Mangachu early on. And you're going to see Hedan really go out of his way to land it, but if he fails to land it or puts himself out of position, he can get punished for it.
Well, Mangachu doing enough damage to these shields. He does get Ube early, who is trying to rotate around. He does feel a little pressure from Icefeld, going to get into that recon mode, which has been new and improved. Hooked and taken out his Icefeld. They've lost 2 very early in this fight, and Mangachu hasn't even had to use his ult yet. It looks like they want to sit on the stairs like a bunch of college freshmen.
Well, why not here? Because they don't have to win one more fight, Hex. They can actually push this up a little bit more. LG now stuck in the conundrum where not only do they have to win the fight, but they also have to get on the point. It makes it more of a problem in terms of things you have to consider and how you have to engage.
If they don't kill Jer here, they have no chance of taking this point back. He's going to have second life on a lot of these people. They do sit behind this shield early on, nullifying most of Icefeld's tactical visor.
Icefeld trying to make the most of this. He's nano boosted, not with the tack visor, but just later on, diving into the back. Of course, Renegades getting res back up. Mangachu, now a nano tank. Moving in, the Graviton hits nothing, but there's not a lot that's going to be saving Spree here. Tank versus Zarya, tank going to win.
Really nice play from Renegades, too. I also like their aggression a lot of the times, but it was the smarter aggression. We talked in the pregame a little bit how Renegades was being almost too aggressive at times. They sat on the stairs for a while, were able to get as much damage as possible, but when it started breaking down, that's when they were treated. They didn't get fully wiped for their aggression. I think they're finding that nice mix of being aggressive for their defense, but also knowing when to fall back.
Very likely, and I will say one thing about the Bastion comps that Renegades are running here. They're protecting the Bastion, but they're not going all in with, say, Diva-type compositions, although the counterpoint is that we're not seeing Diva to try and counter the Bastion either. When we saw Bastion come into play yesterday, both teams had Diva as a crucial part of it. This time, not so much. But we are going to a Bastion-less setup here once more. Both teams going to be running the Pharaoh War.
It's going to be difficult to see Diva against Bastion as she might not be working as intended at the moment right now. So Jesus is going to come in very early, going to put some pressure onto Mineral. The time to kill, very difficult on Lucio, who's got to finish up. Nope, finds himself running into Icefeld, who's got a Helix Rocket with his name on it. Meanwhile, in the skies, Mangachu has taken down Hidan.
Mangachu getting down one part of the opposing Pharah Mercy combo as Juvenile gets in the poop. So it is all even up here, 4 versus 4, but Mangachu's gonna have a lot more room to work with. Doesn't have to worry about the other Pharah combo as much. Icefeld though takes down Saipe, so all is fair and love and more here. Mangachu pretty low, has to back out as Icefeld 15 HP, living way longer than he should, able to take down Lucio in a heroic effort.
Well, that takedown is going to allow Luminosity to take the point over as no bodies on the point for Renegades despite having decent amounts of people up. Ube takes down Sherlocky very early too, which is going to cause Mangachu to have to retreat.
And this is where both teams, of course, putting a lot of faith in their Fair Mercy combos in 76 to bring this forward. And it's been very punchy back and forth here as Ube on the Tracer sees Jesus. Not going to look for a Pulse Bomb because of Rewind, but was hoping to ambush perhaps someone a little squishier.
Unable to get either kill there for either chaser, rather. Ube is going to be holding onto this Pulse Bomb, looking for his ideal position here, his ideal situation to get in there. Still a little bit of damage as these teams feel each other out. Ube wins that Tracer war, but meanwhile, Jesus had taken down Icefeld 5v5 on the point as this fight continues.
Well, the fight is certainly breaking down, but Ube 2 kills here, and oh, the barrage comes in. Spree in over the top, barrage from both Pharaohs here, rockets all around. It is not the 4th of July, but they're trying to make it seem like that. Renegades a little bit ahead of that skirmish as it's Saipe who gets a final bit of cleanup.
Now the rocket's red glare, the Pharah's bursting in air, as it were. Sometimes it's smarter to use the barrage at ground level because people aren't able to get the sight lines on you. You're not just as free of a kill. Maybe that's why we saw Mangachu do it. Maybe it was desperation, but regardless, he got a little bit of value out of it. He's in good position to hit damage booster rockets. He hits a huge one, but not going to be the follow-up there as they will duck out of sight lines. Ube makes himself a target in the sky. Someone hit Pull. Sherlocky is boosting him this entire time. Still no kills thus far. Both teams loaded up with ultimates.
Well, Soundbear going to be used first here by LG, and they get Jesus early on, so 65 opportunity while they're shielded. But Saipe, counterattack visor after it goes down, picks down 2. No one in his face really here to stop him from getting this much from the attack visor. You do have a counterattack visor going on, but it's shut down immediately.
Yeah, only 2 kills for Luminosity Gaming as they come back into this one, but not quite enough. Jesus with a kill there takes down Hidan. That means Spree is going to be all alone in the sky, trying to retreat and still do a little bit of damage. Very likely not long for this world. Gets out momentarily, and then Jesus cleans him up on the chase.
Jesus showing up big there for Renegades towards the very end. And Hex, we've been seeing a lot of what feels like organized chaos. The fights have been going on everywhere. Lots of individual fights with high variance over the course of this control map.
Welcome to Oasis, ZP. This is kind of how this map always goes. It's a raucous experience as there's a battle in the sky, battle on the ground, hard to keep track of it all, and teams are just trading out. It's always a razor's edge on who's going to be able to kill the entire other team to take the point back over.
Oh, Jesus, with a very quick strike on the Mineral, but falls to Icefeld, so even that, not a definitive trade. 4v4 going into the last part of this fight. Renegades looking to keep LG out. LG trying to stay alive here on Oasis. Icefeld looking for targets, but very low on health. His support is gone, but still finds Juvenile with 40 HP. So LG able to stay alive here. But one more fight for Renegades if they win, Hex, will give them the round and the map.
And a 2-1 advantage in this series overall, ZP. Mangachu has barrage up. He's gotten a little more out of his barrages, and I do think it's because of the angles he's taking on the ground, not getting greedy for the over-the-top enormous barrage that almost never happen in competitive. They're going to have a lot of ultimates to work with as long as they don't die here, but it's getting down to it where they have to force the next fight. If they lose the next fight, it's very possible Luminosity takes the stage.
Well, Jesus with a good start here, taking down Icefeld, who's a big part of LG's last team fight win. Can put a lot of pressure on Spree here to find a way through. Spree looking for the barrage, has to deal with Saipei, but not a good angle to do so. The attack flies are too strong. Renegades just tearing through LG here, and Hex, that should be the map. Renegades finishing out here on Oasis 3-1.
Icefeld had a very notable game, but not enough to deal with Mangachu. As you saw that barrage towards the end, he also not going super up in the air, taking it just about 6 feet off the ground, diving board level, getting a lot of value out of those barrages, and then continuing to live, valuing his life more than the second kill overall, knowing if he can stay alive, he can do more damage.
And I will say, in terms of trends just towards the last part of that last round, we saw Jesus really get early pickoffs pretty frequently there for Renegades. I mean, what better pickoff can you get than finding Icefeld early on? You don't have to worry about his 76 damage. You don't have to worry about Attack Visor taking away Mangachu, and it just let them be far more aggressive and pushing out LG from that point.
And that's really what I want to talk about, is comparing these threats. And if we use Spree as kind of like Spree and Mangachu as maybe your primary damage dealers, and we're really going far ranking these people, but because they're all very impactful. But and then you look at the kind of the alt DPS players like Icefeld and Ube. You know, we talk a lot about, well, who are they even playing and why are they playing them on different maps? But looking at Ube, my big question is Luminosity going to be more successful putting him on an off tank in situations like this?
Who knows?
Yeah,
this
right.
is a case where, honestly, who knows? LG has clearly not figured out where they want to put players in some of these situations. So if they're not able to figure out, it's hard for us as outside observers to go, well, put this player on this, put this player on that. We don't know what's going on internally for LG here. And even when breaking down Oasis on that last map, it's very hard because, as I sort of tried to bring light to in the middle of the cast, you do have a lot of these one-on-one situations going. It's probably the most Rambo map there is in terms of teams willing to sort of spread out and let fights devolve like that, whereas other maps like, say, Lijiang, much more 6v6 based.
Well, other maps have really definitive sides, and yes, Oasis has spawns where their sides, but essentially the point's right smack dab in the middle with all of these things surrounding it, which I think lends itself to the chaos. But Oasis definitely its own brand of control map.
And Renegades do favor that aggressive play style, and the reason I question Ube is there were just like 3, I think I counted off camera, so we weren't watching, 3 missed pulse bombs, and these are things that could pull things back in your favor. But maybe he just isn't and Luminosity in general just isn't favoring that fighting style as much coming in here. But let's actually talk a little bit about something that you said. I think that I'm going to write a children's book with this line in it. I can rewind time, says Jesus. I just think that that's something that you guys should use. Anyway, yeah, but I want to talk a little bit about LG. It just seems like they really do struggle finishing fights, as we saw in the first Gardens.
Which is why they struggle in control overall in a lot of different aspects, and especially on Oasis when spawns do feel much closer and there's always someone around and lurking. And the circular nature, there's always a tracer somewhere, there's always a 76 somewhere that can come back in. And then even the verticality nature of it, you can clean up all the ground, but oh, there was a Winston up there was a Fair up there. It becomes very difficult to take the point back over, similar to some of the stages on Ilios, but that's why they struggle on control at these times. They don't definitively finish fights.
Well, when you take a look at how Renegades was played, their Renegades, when they won a fight, they were able to cap the point much quicker. LG, it seemed like even if they capped the point, they were giving up 20, 30% to Renegades as they were delaying, or in some cases, Renegades would come back and throw them off the point. You go back to the very first round, back on Oasis, that seemed to happen pretty frequently, where you saw a really good opening by LG. They don't take out Renegades, and Renegades comes back and wins a fight that they probably should have lost.
Yeah, they're just not finishers. They can find a few early kills maybe in those multiple one-on-ones that are occurring. But then when it comes down to closing off the fight, pick up the pieces, they get delayed very easily. And a couple of these points, Garden specifically, there's a lot of area to move around there. but you need to find a way to do that if you're going to find more success on these control point maps. The other thing that I actually love watching Oasis specifically, especially with Pharahs in the air and Tracers on the ground, is Tracers actually focusing Pharah quite a bit on a couple of those points. Why do you think they're even utilizing Tracers in that vein?
Well, I mean, Tracer has great hit scan damage. I mean, it's not super long range, but a Pharah, what goes up must come down at some point. If there's a Tracer there, she can cut through a Pharah. Pharah does not have the smallest of hitboxes. She really doesn't. If a Tracer is mid-range right by you, there's no reason why she can't cut through 200 HP. It's not that the Tracer is specifically hunting the Pharah, but there's going to be plenty of times where you're hunting other targets and you see the Pharah floating down to the ground. That's your opportunity to put in some damage and maybe get that kill.
Every little bit helps. So if you soften up that Pharah, then your next midair, instead of being a damage midair, is a finishing midair.
And that's the thing, is you almost have to keep that target soft enough that in the Pharah v Pharah battle, you can bank on the next kill happening, and against Mercy as well in that regard.
Every target to a Tracer is just a potential pulse bomb. And so anytime you can get damage in, you take it.
Yeah. Well, the only other thing with that I really enjoy on is the jump pad Tracer. We saw it once at least today, but we've seen it multiple times where Tracer will jump up in the air and kill a Pharah. And it's like, well, you've got the Genji in the air sometimes, and you've got the Pharah. Tracer just wants in on the action, just wants to get up there.
Well, she's got that great horizontal movement once she's in the air that other heroes lack. So she can get up and sees a Pharah across the map, triple blink, drop it, and make those giant highlight plays.
Yeah, that's truly a pulse bomb there from the sky, just blinking over the point. Well, it looks like the next map is going to be Dorado, and in the back and forth nature that it has been so far, LG has selected Dorado. It's definitely something we've seen them on before. Walk us through their strengths on Dorado there, ZP.
Well, on Dorado, I mean, you take a look at their map history, they've been reasonably good at it. Not as good as, say, Immortals has been historically, but it's a map where you take a look at their initiations on Courtyard. They're very good in the very beginning. We've seen Spree go in and just dash in, well coordinate the rest of their team, take down 2-3 people, and make it look easy for first point attacks. However, that was last patch. I do think they're going to be doing a bash in the Courtyard now, and that's a different animal altogether and how you want to engage on it. So last patch, I'm totally down to picking Dorado. This patch, I do wonder how they're going to deal with some of the things that have changed.
They were one of the teams that was successful in dealing with the double builder defense that Renegade had put up in Dorado, though, so perhaps they might have a chance against a Bastion. Of course, a Bastion is not a Torb turret or a Symmetra turret. Of course. On the other side, Luminosity could be running a Symmetra, very possibly Minerals, but known to switch over that on Dorado as well.
Yeah, and I'm excited to see how Bastion maybe could be utilized on defense here, because it seems to lend itself to that mobile Bastion option. Where is he going to be coming from? Is he next to the statue? Is he more on the side of the market? Is he in the doorway? There's more options potentially as we are going into the map. So we're about to find out what these teams have to bring here in this patch, as Renegades are up 2-1 against Luminosity.
Well, I love me some Dorado. I like the music, I like the festivities, I like piñatas. One of the best parts of this game, very early, I would just boot up Dorado, go around, melee some piñatas, pretend I was at a party, pretend I was invited to a party. CP?
So you used to like the music here on Dorado up until the dirty secret came out that you had turned off music in Overwatch.
I had to turn off the music. There's, I have to have that laser focus on a caster so I can come up with these amazing stories about piñatas.
Well, as someone like me who usually had to host a stream back in the day, I had no option of turning off the music because then the viewers wouldn't hear it.
Oh, I weep for you. You had to hear music.
I did. It was terrible. It was horrifying. But it was also great because it is a decent soundtrack. But so we were talking a little bit about what defense could you expect to see here from Renegades, and even though LG has had a very good offensive strategy on Dorado, will it hold up against this defensive Bastion that Renegades is very clearly looking to run?
Defensive Bastion in effect, as you mentioned, not a surprise considering magnitude. What I actually really like here is supplementing this with Jesus on the McCree. There are enough angles where you can spam down a Bastion, even though poke is less effective, and Jesus is going to be trying to knock Spree out of the sky. Also, they know exactly what Luminosity is going to run on offense. I think they've ran this exact offense on Dorado every time we've seen them.
And why wouldn't they run this exact offense when they have had great success on it? It's been probably one of the better initial fair engages that we've seen all throughout the course of the OCS. So Spree definitely won the watch here, but how he deals with Mangachu is going to be interesting.
Running 4 DPS, actually, not running a Winston in this at all. So 4 DPS, 2 healers coming in for Luminosity. Still going to have to find an answer for Bastion. This is a newer spot, holding farther forward. Generally, you have Bastion sitting in the fountain, but meanwhile, the combo has gone around back, and that is new recon mode.
Recon mode being a big part of that. 45% Ferris health evaporating immediately. Of course, Jesus and Sherlocky combining for the rest. And I gotta say, Spree dropped pretty quickly there, Hex. It was not a slow death. It was about as swift as you get.
Not a slow death nor an honorable one, dying to a recon Bastion. Despite the new changes, spread being lessened is the big one that you saw in effect there. Jesus is creeping, waiting for someone to come around the corner as he's got his spurs silenced. Looks for the flashbang, unable to go through that kill. Meanwhile, Spree challenged Mangachu to no effect.
And this is going to get problematic here for LG because time can quickly slip away from you when you're on a Dorado attack. You think you have more time than you actually do. I just wonder how long they're going to stick with this fairy here because even on an ultimate basis, they have a Dragon Blade up, but not much else early on here.
Ube's got the Dragon Blade, as you mentioned, and we'll see how his Genji is today. He can be inconsistent on his Genji sometimes, but going to see if he wants to go into the Bastion or does he go to the back line and try to ignore the Bastion. So far, there's some nice distraction at least going on with the combo over top, and I think that's exactly what they're trying to do, but Jesus is not distracted anymore by Spree. Hits 3 shots in a row and takes him out. Now the Mercy struggling in the back line. Got to be careful of that pistol, though.
Well, Ube coming with the Dragon Blade, looking to tear this wide open. Has 2 here thus far, looking for a 3rd, but no, tank shell, greater than the sword. Mangachu, though, going the fall, and the multi-destruction worked out. Even though Spree died pretty early, it pulled enough back that it gave Ube room to work with in the front. His Dragon Blade able to take down 2, and Bastion getting dislodged.
Hadan won the pistol duel, and I am no longer surprised by the amount of damage Mercy's pistol does. He absolutely chunked Jesus there and then stayed alive to support his team, and that's going to allow Spree to come in here with his Mercy, and they're going to be able to push them back. No entry on the left side. They're going to be able to capture this point very likely, but there's a Zarya trying to get there. Mangachu gets out here very late as well. Rez did come in, so fight continues.
The fight continues from Renegades trying to bring it back. Mangachu still in this, takes down Zurafluke, and this res might be enough. Jesus finding Icefelt in the back. So the resurrection definitely working out, and I gotta say the res change is probably for the better. We haven't been seeing Mercies immediately die after using Resurrection, which has definitely been aiding teams and going, hey, you know what, maybe we do want to run Mercy in more of these comps.
I think it's a great change. She's a good healer. She was a staple for a long time, but she needed a little bit of improvement to higher up her pick rate. What I didn't love there is it seemed like Spree had that door locked down and then bailed out of there and allowed some people to come back in.
Well, Jesus just loses the 1v1, the Icefelt straight up there, a little bit over aggro at the flashbang, doesn't have to protect himself. Now, this is a very big opportunity as Icefelt comes in and takes on Mangachu. Icefelt has single-handedly pushed this in. A little bit of fall through from his team, but that is going to be a full team wipe, and that will be LG taking this point. Big, huge plays coming out from Icefelt.
I've heard that Icefelt is a very good tracer. You see it right there. Right now, this composition seems to be working out for him. What was a Winston ever going to do against a Bastion anyway? You don't have the shields like a Reinhardt. It's essentially a very big personal shield, a very big fishbowl. But Ube did some good work on this Genji, a little more impactful than his Tracer been, and then Super Pluke just playing whatever he wants and adding in the extra hit scan damage on a Soldier 76. They've got great control of the high ground. Good first pick on Jur.
A surgical execution, and he picks up a second. He's taking out both supports. Ube in God mode right now. Finds 4, 5, is he the full 6? Ube completes the 6K. Wow.
Now the only question is, what are the odds that he has the pumpkin play of the game highlight?
He probably has a pumpkin. A pumpkin is going to get slaughtered at the end of this game. You can almost guarantee it. That is absolutely dirty coming out from Ube, and fight winning and perhaps point winning. We'll see. Renegade's going to take another crack at this here, X.
Beautiful. They've got everyone where exactly they want to be. High ground is controlled on the left and the right side. Winston takes a lot of damage incoming. There goes a barrage. Takes down Juvenile. Spree gives his life for it, though.
Does give his life for it. Resurrection coming out, and oh, Mangachu, Nano Tank coming in here, trying to pull this back. Looking for the soldier on the side. Doesn't get immediately, but Icefelt does fall. Not able to dodge the tank shell, and Renegades might be bringing this back yet. And Hex, it's looking like they will.
We've seen the change happen a lot in all aspects. Again, he can heal himself while on the run, healing himself between tank shots as the fire rate is low enough to get his health back up. Of course, going to have a Mercy in his back pocket. What that does allow is to make sure the Mercy can stay on damage boost to really help those tank shells, because Mangachu can heal himself.
All right, so Renegades here, 1 minute left to defend. LG gonna have to try and find a way through. No Dragon Blade to save them this time, Hex, and it's gonna be difficult. But with Spree finding Jesus early on, it's gonna be far less difficult. Jesus a little bit too far out, and now Renegades gonna have to do this 5v6.
Well, we talked about all the buffs. One of the nerfs was that the sentry distance spread is a little bit greater, so they're going to be able to poke from a distance. No headshots also in that sentry mode either, so sentry mode's still very good, but not at the distance it used to be.
All right, and they've stalled out enough to let Jesus get back into this fight, and it's Spree getting taken down from all angles, from the side, from the front, from the back. Nowhere he can fly in that situation. 3 kills here from Renegades. And now for LG, the question is, can they get back onto this point in time? Saipe a little bit far out, but only 23 seconds remaining.
Saipe plays a great assassin gorilla. He finishes kills on Winston more than any other Winston in the game right now. Pluke is able to take down Jesus very early, gives them a small, well, at least even advantage going into this fight as they're going to try to push down Mangachu up top. He eats a lot of damage, goes down from Ube.
But the resurrection is right there. Jared going to bring them back up in short order. But the bomb is right there. Mangachu suffers a second death in record time. 4 unanswered kills there from LG, and it's Icefeld again, acting the hero. That pulse bomb stopping Mangachu from doing any extra shenanigans. They're going to sound barrier just to make sure. Honestly, perhaps a bit of a waste, but they're in overtime. They need to make this happen, and I suppose they didn't want to take any chances.
No, you can't afford to hold ultimates. Ultimates don't do you any good back in lobby if you lose your side of the map. So throwing everything there, the correct choice. 90 seconds for them to be able to finish out this map now. They are going to have the resurrection too, so someone's going to get a second life. Ube still far away on the Dragon Blade, but he's been able to charge it up very quickly, getting a lot of free push right now. No one really in position to challenge this. They haven't rotated around top, which is generally where you see the defense hold. Now they're trying to get position up there. Spree's going to try to deny it.
1 minute remaining here from LG. Could be about 2 pushes. Jesus going down to first again. This has been a consistent trend for the last 2 fights. Icefeld following through as Spree comes from the back. A flanking barrage immediately gets on the Mangachu and even finds Jer. So LG keeping the momentum going forward. Renegades now starting to get in a bit of a tough position.
A really smart offensive resurrection, though, to keep them at full health and make sure that they do not allow the defense to reestablish. There's a Diva being annoying, but that is just about all she is doing. Sherlocki does not see this flank.
Oh, here comes the tank from Mangachu. Tank mode underway once more. He's nano boosted in. But meanwhile, Ube, Dragon Blade of his own, and oh, he just eats the tank shell immediately. Mangachu coming back into the top. Tank mode is done, but so might be LG's chances of winning on this push. 22 seconds remaining.
It was really going to come down to who was going to get more out of their ultimate, Ube or Mangachu. Mangachu able to hit an elusive target as a jumping Genji took down Ube, even though Ube was able to get a kill there. They are going to be able to hold right now. Last push incoming for Luminosity. Desperation time.
Super Blue does have Tac Visor ready, but no, Mangachu mows him down before he can even say he has him in his sights. A much better position here from Mangachu, and this should be a very clean last point defense from Renegades on this final push. Overtime fading away, and that is going to be a hold on last for the side of Renegades.
Well, they almost got held at second. I'd say overall, Luminosity did gut it out in the fights that they had to win there towards the end, although not a full completion. Time and again, we have said Dorado, one of the more difficult maps to complete. Last of Dorado, a very strong defender's advantage. High ground given up very easily to the defenders. Hard to take away as the offense, so pretty solid taking it that far. We'll see what Renegades has in store for us on their attack.
Well, it is looking like they are considering putting a Bastion back on top of that payload. I was looking at this and wondering Pharah, and okay, now I think they're going Pharah. I think that Pharah for offense here does make a lot more sense in cracking the courtyard. As much as Mangachu loves Bastion, I think what we might see here is Pharah for the first stage and then Bastion for second or third. It's hard to say, though, because Toronto has so many ways of breaking line of sight with a Bastion when you are on defense dealing with attackers coming in.
Speaking of Bastion, Icefeld does appear to want to run his own Bastion. Although I do question if Luminosity is running it just because of his insanely high power levels and not necessarily because they want to. They're not super comfortable with it. They will run Mineral on that Symmetra, so even more important than the Bastion, of course, is keeping that Symmetra alive. If they're able to do so and win some early fights, then you give even more support to Bastion. Maybe a teleporter come up, but I don't know, maybe I want to see a Bastion with a shield generator on him as well.
That would be an even tankier Bastion because, as far as I know, Ironclad would affect that, so...
I didn't want to admit it. I didn't want to admit that I wanted to see it, but I think I do.
It's a tankier Bastion before he even becomes a tank. Think about it.
Well, early on, you do want to see if the team is ready for the Symmetra play, if they take down the turrets or they feed about 50% charge. Very early on, already 10%. Very decent for those sneaky turrets early. Minerals got them spread all over the place, not the 6-stack you usually see right beside the door.
I will say, though, I think this Metro is a gamble here. You do need strong support around a Bastion, and I'm not sure they're going to have that on this very first push, so we'll see if Renegades can punish them for running the sim early on. Certainly, Mangachu and Saipe looking for their way in here, and they're just going to dive in. The courtyard now under fresh assault Renegades, but Mangachu goes down immediately to Ube. The hook onto him immediately. Icefelt might fall to Saipe, but the rest of Renegades going to have to back out a little bit here. Hedan, oh my goodness, he just got headshot by Sherlocky. Now there's options open for Renegades to pull this right back. There's no healing here to really keep up Ube.
Now Saipe is going to come in here with a Dragon Blade, try to close it out. Jesus took down Mineral before a Symmetra ultimate could come up. Mangachu and Saipe will also combine, grab a couple. Juvenile able to take down Superpluke. This fight completely one-sided for Renegades after some early holds, but once Icefelt went down, oftentimes, if you're running a Bastion-centered composition, Bastion going down means you've lost the fight.
I think there was a chance of them holding it out, but we didn't get the exact angle on it, but it was a Mercy taking down Ana at the very end, and with no Hedan there, Ube's not going to have the sustain. He needs to keep it up. Meanwhile, Renegade's making the most of this early attack, really taking to LG, not letting them get out of their spawn effectively. Forget holding in second. Jesus, special delivery takes down 2 right by the spawn door.
Jesus does drop it onto Ube. They're being very aggressive here as they've just captured the first point, trying to get as much done onto the second point as well. Good ultimates available for them. Surprised Mangachu, while he's actually holding the other door. They're holding both doors top left, but now Jesus is in there. Mangachu takes out Ube, who was trying to rotate top right, off screen right there. Jesus taking down Hedan. All Renegades so far.
Right now, Renegades making LG look like classic complexity here just by keeping them in their spawn room. Attack or no attack, Mangachu unchecked over the top, gets Mineral Icefeld, and this has just been keeping LG fully split and just dying from the air, from the ground, and the payload now almost to the second point.
Unchecked is the perfect word to describe what Mangachu is feeling right now. Ube's been unable to shut him down or even deter him from hanging out where he wants to be. They're going to send Saipe up there over to supplement any sort of support that Mangachu needs. Right up front, here come the tanks. Mangachu waiting for a giant barrage.
Mangachu was hoping people would come through that door. Instead, he's going to come in from the side. Barrage coming in, taking down 1, almost 2. But the res is still up here for Renegades. Sherlocky can bring Mangachu right back up, and I think he's just waiting for it. And there it is, the resurrection, bringing back up the Fallen. We'll see if Mangachu can turn this back around. LG, though, getting back onto that point. It should be close, but the Dragon Blade from Saipe, the finisher, takes down 1. Basically results in a second, and Renegades now, pretty good momentum coming in here, Hex. 5 minutes to bring this not even to last.
We talk so often about having a third threat. Mangachu is great, Jesus is great, but Saipe on his Winston and on his Genji has been so good. Oftentimes people overlook him as a threat on the Winston, but I'm telling you, watch the kill feed when he's chasing people down. It's amazing what he can get done. Now look at that. That's something you don't see every day. Genji's pushing the cart.
Well, Genji's on the card. Someone has to do it, and this time, not always Lucio. But, Jared, you gotta drop the sound barrier here. Renegades trying to seize their moment. They're stuck in the Graviton. LG gets the fall through on that Graviton. 4 kills, and they're just gonna have to back it out here. Sound barrier, not enough to prevent that fight, but Hex, they have so much time left.
Yeah, they did completely shut down right there. Jesus did end up using a Pulse Bomb late in that fight, which he could have held on to. Pulse Bomb, of course, comes up so quickly if you're doing any amount of damage as a Tracer, and we know what a good Tracer Jesus can be, but still something that they would have liked to have up. On the other side of things, Icefeld will have his up. He's going to have the potential to end this fight before it starts as they rotate up top, try to hold some of this high ground.
Oh, that fight here is underway. Renegades not wasting a whole lot of time, but they lose Jesus immediately into this fight. Saipe just going to get microwaved down, and 3 unanswered kills. Kind of an awkward engage by Renegades, although they didn't have a whole lot of ultimate power going into it to begin with. Perhaps they're just hoping to draw a few ultimates out.
Well, perhaps that's what they were hoping. They're going to maybe get ultimates through the next fight, but as we've mentioned, a lot of time left on the clock. It could come down to Renegades simply banking up ult. It might be Junk Rush after Junk Rush and try to get some ultimates expended out of Luminosity. Every time they go in, and even if they lose a fight, any ultimate spent by Luminosity is going to feel like a victory for them.
Well, Mangachu right now will certainly be trying to look for a flanking barrage early in this fight. Jesus, a pest in the back, doesn't get by the sleep dart, and here comes Renegades once more. LG, though, counter-engaging with the sound barrier. Saipei not going to find a whole lot, but Mangachu finding Spree, still holding on to the barrage. 5v5. LG not out of the woods here yet. Jerry even taking one to the feet there. And that's a late barrage coming out from Mangachu. Does not get anything. Not a fan of that barrage there, Alex.
Well, clearly what we think they should do and they think they should do are two different things, as they expended every ultimate as they came online, so nothing for Renegades going into this next fight. And what was once several minutes on the clock is quickly shrinking down. 2.5 left, CP.
They've used half the time they had allotted after getting to third, and they don't have a whole lot to show for it, but they are starting to change things up here. Mangachu now onto the Roadhog, gonna be looking for pickoffs, and I think they're gonna try and grind this out a little bit more slowly rather than trying to take it from the multi-flanking threat, but they see this. LG now is changing in reaction to the Renegades comp. Icefeld coming in here on the Bastion.
Great adaptation for Luminosity. Up top, they try to take down the Ana with no success at all. Still high ground being held. Ube's holding on to this tactical visor, looking for his moment. Dodges a hook. That's 8 seconds on cooldown now, but they have to fight at some point.
They do have to fight. Icefeld now coming in, giving himself line of sight here on the Bastion, tearing through the tanks here, but not able to keep consistent line of sight. They're using the terrain to dodge here. It's a nice sleep dart on the heat end. Takes him out of fight for a little bit. 2 kills here from Renegade, so the Bastion really struggling to get anything done. He has to throw himself on the point. This is not the intent of this defense. Ube, late tack visor, under pressure here on the top. And we'll see how this works out, but it's not letting him put fire onto the cart. Meanwhile, Renegades clearing out the cart. That's going to be it. Renegades taking the series 3-1 with a victory here in Dorado.
Jesus did such a great job there up top, distracting Ube, making sure he was unable to target the lower lines there, and everyone extremely aware of those sight lines. You mentioned using the cart for cover looked great. They were dodging in and out of rooms there, back and forth, keeping themselves away from the giant threat. There was Bastion until they'd gotten the kills they needed. Bastion had to jump down at the end. No pumpkin.
I'm happy for that. As someone who enjoys pumpkins, I'm happy. And this isn't the 6K.
No, it's not. This is how good Ube was. Well, maybe more impactful. I do not doubt the algorithm. Computers are smarter
I
than
am totally doubting the algorithm right
dare
now.
you.
I think the 6K was just a little bit dragged out, which is probably why, but come on. That was such a good play by Ube on second.
Yeah, I don't even know if it was that dragged out. I think it was pretty quick, overall. I mean, there was one early pick and then the second one, and then it went both healers, but it was fast enough for me. Well, you know what? Follow us on Twitter, everyone. Actually, just watch it right now.
Here we go. This is Ube, of course, going in. Got the early pickoff onto supports and did not stop there. Dragon Blade just cleaving through Renegades here. And for Ube, who's been hit or miss on Genji, that was definitely a big, big hit.